Hi everyone, welcome to Energetic Conversations with me and Daniel. Today we're going to be talking about religious abuse. Bear with me, I'm just going to invite Daniel to come in. It's taking me through this whole thing. Okay. Right. Yes, we're going to be talking about religious abuse, and please look after yourself during this conversation because naturally, with it being such a sensitive topic, some triggering things might come up. Some people might be activated by what we're saying. It's quite a heavy topic. We're going to try and cover it in a way which is light enough to be conversational, but also not kind of covering over some of the things that do occur and that have occurred. So I'll just let Daniel in. Bear with me a second. Hello.
Hey.
Hey.
Hey, you.
Hello. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. I'm well. I'm looking forward to our conversation, and yeah, who knows what's going to come up today.
Same. I was just saying to everyone, just look after yourself, look after your mental health during this conversation. We are going to try
Mm,
and keep it conversational,
mm.
but we appreciate that this is a sensitive one, and this is a heavy one, this is a deep one. So yeah, if you have any questions, type them in the little question box at the very bottom on the right. If we have time, we will come to your questions at the end. But first, I want to say one of the reasons we're talking about this is because both of us have had personal experience of religious abuse or religious manipulation in various ways. So for us, it feels like quite a pertinent topic. And funnily enough, or maybe not funnily enough, our experiences have actually personally revolved around Christianity. Now, that doesn't mean that all religious abuse is from Christianity, but our personal stories are framed in terms of Christianity. But we do recognize that it happens in various different religions and spiritualities. So Daniel, I wanted to invite you to share a bit about your background and why this topic is important to you. Maybe share your story. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to echo what Maya said. You know, both of us are going to be speaking from the vantage point of Christianity, but please make no mistake about it. Religious abuse happens in every religion, every denomination, across the board. All right. So no religion is being left out of this conversation. All
Mm-hmm.
right. But from my perspective, you know, I grew up in a Christian background in a Christian family and in a Christian church, Pentecostal Christian church. My dad is a pastor. He's actually a bishop in the Pentecostal church. His brother is a bishop. My grandfather is a bishop, and my great grandfather was a bishop. So I come from three generations of Christian pastors who have all gone on to be bishops, and that is hopefully paint some type of picture as to the space that I grew up in. So both my dad's side of the family and my mother's side of the family are very integrated within the Christian institution. And I want to say that I am very, very thankful for how I grew up. I'm very thankful for it. My exposure to the spiritual realm and to the supernatural through the lens of Christianity has opened my eyes to so much and has taught me so much. I'm not here at 31 years old wanting to erase my upbringing. You know, there was a lot of good that came from me being brought up the way that I was brought up. But now at this particular time in my life, a lot of those things don't resonate with me, and a lot of those things aren't true for me. And so for me, it's been really about unraveling, unpacking, and really unbecoming the certain things that don't resonate with me, so that I can become more of who I believe I am, and using my gifts for what I believe I'm called to do at this particular time of my life. And so I grew up in a very Christian upbringing. At the same time, I did not grow up in a very strict household, and it's a very interesting dichotomy with my family. My parents grew up quite strict, and I think when they had children, they came together and they're like, "We're not going to raise you as strict as we were raised." So I grew up in a very democratic household. My parents raised my siblings and I to all be the people that we felt that we were supposed to be, and they've always given us space to express ourselves authentically. And I'm very thankful for that. And that is one of the things my parents have done incredibly well. They've always supported my siblings and I to be who we are and to express ourselves. And, growing up, I was always the one that was, at that time when I was growing up, I was rebellious in the way of like, I was practicing other religions while living at my parents' house. And, I would be at the dinner table and, my dad would be saying, praying in Jesus' name. And I'd be saying something from the Islamic faith. I'd be like, probably doing this, like, we're not Catholic. I would just do anything that was contrary to what the doctrine was of my household. And my parents would just laugh. It would be like a joke type of thing. But my parents very much know who I am. And even now they know where I stand. I am not a practicing Christian. I'm not. I've divested from the Christian institution. I've divested from the Christian church. And that's my personal journey, And so for me, that is my trajectory. That's the path that I'm on. Others who come from the Christian faith or others who come from other religious backgrounds may feel called to stay in the institutions that they're in, may feel called to stay, at mosque, at church, at temple, at the synagogue. That's completely up to you. Everyone has their own individual journey. For me, I officially divested back in 2020. But again, before that, again, I divested physically. It happened energetically, mentally, and spiritually before you do it physically. So, for a while, I was divesting mentally and really challenging things. And it's been a lifelong journey of challenging things and having things come up. And again, I'm very thankful to my parents because I challenge things with them. We have good conversations with that. And so I do feel very thankful that I have parents who, again, give me that space to challenge and to grow and to be who I am. And right now, I feel like I'm stepping more into who I am. And it's been a very interesting trajectory. With that being said, the abuse comes in many different forms. And that's just abuse across the board. Abuse comes in many different forms. And religious abuse particularly comes in many different forms. And I would say that for me and my family, that the abuse mostly has come from doctrine. And the highly problematic and upsetting and disappointing and harmful nature of doctrine is that it can abuse you without anyone doing anything, without anyone saying anything. My family, we have been religiously abused, and we currently still are religiously abused. And it was so interesting because my mother, her and I had a very good conversation last month or 2 months ago. And it was the first time I've ever heard my mother articulate in my life that as a family, we had been religiously abused and that we still are religiously abused. And that's big for my mother to say. That's big for my mother to say. And I think really it's just comes to the fact that the older you get, I think the more you recognize all the different ways that you've been abused, that you've been harmed through religious and spiritual doctrine, practices, and ideologies. And, as a family, as the Edmond family, we're really coming to terms with that. And individually, I think I came to terms with that a while ago, but I'm really pushing further and further into the space that I feel called to with my own spiritual path, and recognizing and turning back and recognizing that this institution that my family in many ways are one of the gatekeepers of, one of the many gatekeepers of, is incredibly abusive, is incredibly toxic in many ways. That doesn't mean that there isn't good that can come from it. That doesn't mean that having a community, of people that's coming together, particularly as BIPOC people, I'm not saying that those things aren't good, but any institution is going to be riddled with abuse, having abuses of all kinds. And we can get into that. We can get all the way into that. It's going to be riddled with abuse and harmful ideologies. So I would say the way in which I have personally been abused by religion is through doctrine. And the complex and abusive nature of doctrine is that it's not supposed to change. And if you try to change it, you're going against God's will. You're going against the holy text. You're going New Age. You're going this, that, all these type of if I hear New Age one more time, first of all, just to everyone out there, I'm not in the paradigm at all. So I'm not New Age, because to be New Age, I would have to be in Christianity to then do some kind of like remix of Christianity. I'm not in it at all. Okay. So I'm not even in the paradigm to even be New Age. So you can just miss me with all of that. All right. I'm good. Okay. So, but yeah, so the doctrine isn't ever supposed to change. And if you challenge it, it's like, this is what is written, and this, and it's like, cool, that's your perspective, that's your opinion. And a lot of these things are people's opinions, literally are people's opinions, and so it's like, for me, it's like, look, I respect everyone's, I respect everyone and everyone's choice to believe in what they believe in, and to have, like I said, I have a lot of respect for the faith and the people who practice the faith who aren't abusive, but like, again, this is my journey. And again, the doctrine, I think we probably will end up speaking a lot about doctrine, or at least I will in this conversation today, because it's the doctrine that can, you can have a preacher literally, implement doctrine and impregnate you with doctrine, and they can pass away. In 20 years, you're still being abused by that doctrine. That is the harmful, abusive nature of religious doctrine. So that's some of the background I'm coming from. I want to make space for you to share, Maya, but yeah, we'll start off like that.
Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, we will go deeper into that and some of the more personal ways in which that has affected you. So just to give a background of why I'm talking about religious abuse and coming from a personal viewpoint, is I was born in the Hindu faith. And then when I was 9, my mum died and my dad remarried. So he actually got with a white English woman within 8 weeks and that's a whole other IG live. He got with a white English woman within 8 weeks of my mum dying. And she was a born again Christian. And maybe she still is. I don't speak to her anymore, but my dad is not religious at all, but this woman, she was very sort of steeped in her faith, and being born again as well, very, very sort of, I don't want to say evangelical, but very, very like, it was like everything to her. It was very dominant in her life. And then that kind of bled into us as a family. And there wasn't much regard for the fact that actually I came from the Hindu faith. It felt like a very sort of Christian colonization within my own home. So it was damaging, but at the time I didn't realize. I was young, impressionable. I've always been a spiritually minded person. I've always been open to the idea of a bigger picture and God. So I think for me, I welcomed like another perspective. It started to like really resonate with me, or that's what I thought. And so eventually, like, I became a Christian. I wasn't baptized or anything, but I would have classed myself as a Christian. And one of the things that happened is we got sent, me and my 2 siblings got sent to a school, and it was actually called Barnsley Christian School. It doesn't exist anymore, but it was like you had to be a born again Christian as a parent to even get your kids in there. So you can only imagine what the school was like. There was a church involved. It was very, very like white. I think there was me, my brother, and like 2 black people and 1 Chinese girl who was my best friend at the time. Like literally that was all there was in this entire school. Everyone was a Christian. We in RE, like even though we touched on like other religions, it was obviously very, very like mainly about the Bible. We were like diving in deep, learning about the disciples, all that kind of stuff. Like going into the New Testament mainly. And so like that was my world. And so even when I was like 21 or 22 when I moved to Bristol, I joined a church, and I joined a group of, in this church there was this group of like young women who gathered every week to like talk about, I don't know, Christianity and God and different things. And so I used to go to these people's houses, and everyone was really lovely. That was the thing, like everyone was, I say lovely, everyone is generally in churches. When I never found anyone like actually like verbally abusive or anything, but as you said, the doctrine and the way that the doctrine kind of seeps through people, that's what I found abusive. So, and I'll go into more personal details of like the kind of abuse that I experienced. But, you know, when I used to go to these women's houses, I remember like wanting to ask these really kind of important questions, you know, about sex or about like difficult things, like real life stuff. And like no one seemed to want to go there. So I ended up like holding my tongue and like not asking, because I felt like people just wanted to avoid like really big issues. And eventually I ended up leaving the church altogether because I felt like something was massively missing. And actually later on, I realized personally it was the feminine aspect. I found it, you know, looking back, it was incredibly patriarchal, deeply intertwined with colonialism, as we've seen, as we know in this world. Like if anyone's read about colonialism and knows about it, like Christianity was one of the biggest tools, spiritual warfare, spiritual manipulation. And so like, you know, looking at what happened with my motherland, with India, you know, I learned all about that. And so all of this stuff like kind of gathered together, and I was like, nah, I'm out. Like, and the thing is, I still believe Jesus walked this earth. It's not like I was like, oh, Jesus never existed. But the structure of religion that was built around this man who wasn't a Christian himself, he was a brown Palestinian radical, like revolutionary guy who people wouldn't even like recognize if he even walked into their church. For me, he was very important, and he still is. But I also believe in like Mary Magdalene, who was completely erased from the church. So that's a whole other thing, which I'll probably go into later. But there was all these like missing pieces for me. And I was like, oh, this is not resonating anymore. And it's only when you step out properly and you're like, oh, holy shit, like mind the pun, but like, what are these people like, how am I like abusing myself now that I've stepped out? Like, what are all these like toxic thoughts that have come from the church that I don't even know are real? Like, who even wrote this? And then like just picking it apart. So that's kind of my background. And then since leaving the church, I mean, that was like over 10 years ago, I am deeply spiritual, but I don't ascribe to any religion. But I see the resonance of the holy figures, you know, like certain Hindu deities and Jesus, Mary Magdalene, different Buddhist concepts. Like, I think there's some beautiful truth in all of it. I just don't agree with a structure that oppresses people, particularly because most of our religions were formed within patriarchal times. So they're not matriarchal, which it was in ancient times. It's very patriarchal. It serves a very colonial purpose, a lot of them, especially Christianity, mainly Christianity. But yeah, even Islam, you know, I don't want to like step on anyone's toes or anything, but like, you know, it's highly patriarchal a lot of the time, even if the spiritual texts don't speak about that. It's been turned into a tool for patriarchy to oppress women and men. So yeah.
100%. And you look, you know, at some point, you know, you have to call a thing a thing.
Yeah.
You know, Islam has been used to colonize just as much as Christianity has. Yeah. And if we're looking at through the lens of Black and brown people, Islam has been just as destructive as Christianity has. And there's no way you can have this conversation without including all the facts, all the figures, and all the realities of all of the religions. Yeah. You know, and I think obviously because, you know, there's a variety of different reasons why a lot of people shy away from bringing Islam into that conversation, because a lot of Islamophobia exists. And that's, you know, and obviously mine and I are not coming from that vantage point at all, at all. But you have to be real about what is actually going on, you know, and what has gone on. And so, again, when you look at it through, again, the lens of Black and brown people, both Islam and Christianity have been incredibly, highly destructive. And colonization Islam and Christianity has been a vehicle for colonization in many ways across the world, and still to this day is happening.
Definitely. And Hinduism, like in India now, like this extreme right-wing Hindus that are causing so much harm, so much damage. And, you know, I come from a Hindu family, but like, you know, I can't turn the other cheek and go, mind the pun as well, because I just like all these religious things are coming out. But like, I can't like not see how even Hinduism, any structure can be used and turned against the very people it was meant to serve, and turned against humanity in general, like Judaism, Hinduism. it's not so much it's not so much the spiritual essence of it, it's how it's being used in a toxic way to have power over and abuse others.
Yeah. It becomes a system of oppression and power, you know, and so again, and that's the institutional aspect of religion. And that's the thing. Again, like Maya said, it's not the spiritual essence of it. It's the institutional, you know, people-made aspects of these religions that are then used to aggrandize them, you know, countries, people, and oppress others. And so again, any institution will have abuse and will have oppression in it. Political institution, educational institution, the healthcare institution, you name it. If it's an institution, it's got abuse, it's got oppression, and it's got people aggrandizing themselves for their own use and for their own gain. So again, we've got to be able to have that conversation from a well-rounded point of view with that. So yeah, thank you for sharing, Maya, and you know, and we'll dig into a little bit more of the, you know, personal stories for both of us, everything like that. But one of the things I do want to share with everyone is that I know that for many people, this is something that you perhaps have been thinking about. You know, this is something that you perhaps are going through right now. And I just want to let you know that we're here. You know, we hear you, we see you, we feel you. And for those who have been questioning the particular doctrines that they've been brought up questioning the different theologies and ideologies that they've been brought up thinking and believing, continue to question. Find out what's true for you, and only you will know what's true for you. Only you. And so, you know, I just really want to implore everyone out there to continue to question. If you're in a space where you can't question, you know, something, you're not in a good space. You're not. And actually, I would say that you're in an abusive space. That is a key indicator right there, that you're in an abusive space. If you cannot question the religious ideologies that are being taught to you. You've got to be able to question, and you've got to be able to understand what's being taught to you and the principles behind it. What Maya is saying, with a lot of religions right now and religious institutions, the feminine has been taken out, it's been oppressed, it's been abused, again, with many of the religions that we see right now. And again, Maya said it completely right. In ancient times, it wasn't like that. Largely speaking, it wasn't like that, you know? So again, we have to understand the ways in which patriarchy, colonization, racism, capitalism have all been injected into these religions, hijacked by many people, by political figures, by countries, you know, entire continents and governments, to then be used to aggrandize themselves. So again, we've got to look at this from a variety of different spaces. And again, you know, I think 2020 was a great eye opener for many people to see that actually you can be religious all you want. You can be Christian all day long. You can be, you know, practice Islam all day long, you know, all day long. But we've seen that no way will stop people from being racist, that no way will help some people to get further into their race work. No way will help people to get further into their gender work. No way will help people to reconcile with lands, and no way will help them to really be able to, you know, deconstruct and divest from colonial thinking. No, not at all. Because again, it's not the essence of that they're actually working with. You're working with the structures of it. And for most pastors, and I would say this as someone who comes as someone who is a child of a pastor, you know, again, you know, one of the pastor's role, or any religious leader's role, is to protect the institution. It's not just the people; it's to protect the institution. Yeah. And oftentimes, the institution will come before the people. Yeah. That is just the God honest truth. It's about protecting the institution, protecting the traditions, and protecting the doctrine at all costs. At all costs. Even if people are being abused, at all costs. And that is one of the biggest problems with institutionalized religion, is that it's, you know, everyone is really ready and willing. Not everyone. So many people are ready and willing to protect it with their lives and with the lives of others. And so I've divested from that. Maya's divested from that. I'm not in that paradigm anymore. I'm not here to protect the church. I'm not here to keep the church up, keep it going. I recognize the, you know, the community aspect of it and the great things that churches have been able to do, and other religious spaces have been able to do for communities, again, particularly as BIPOC people. I hold various realities in tandem. But if you think that I'm up here trying to save religion and save institutions, you got me messed up. Because if anything, I'm sitting back. First of all, they're imploding anyway. So I just got to sit back and watch it burn. But make no mistake, I'll roll a few barrels of gasoline in there if I have to. You know, like I'm happy. Okay. Look, but it's imploding on its own. It's imploding on its own because again, the structures that were working for people before are no longer going to be able to serve us in this new phase and wave that we're going into, this new space that we're going into. They will not be able to serve us. Yeah. And so again, it's like you have to divest from religion. It's divesting mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, financially. It's a complete divestment when you divest from religion, a religious institution, just like any institution. So I want to share that as well.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And when you were saying about these institutions will throw their own kind of members in front of the bus to protect the institution. I mean, we see that all the time, especially, with the sexual abuse of children in the Catholic Church, which has been just covered up for absolutely just years and years and years by priests, like by the actual heads of the church. This happens all the time. And then also the shocking events with the residential schools in Turtle Island, i.e. Canada and America, which came out more last year when the bodies of these children, First Nation children, were actually found underneath these residential schools, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. I mean, we're talking maybe even thousands now, under these schools, which were created to take them away from their culture and their family and turn them, into like believers of Christianity and strip them of like all of their sort of cultural identity, give them new names, cut their hair, like completely, it's a spiritual genocide. That's what happened. And many times, like, they were actually murdered, they were killed. And so this is a real thing under the name of Christianity. Now, the thing that we have to say is, like, when you look at Jesus's life, and we were taught a lot about Jesus's life, there was no way that he had ever said, you need to do this. This is what you need to do. Kill in my name, murder in my name. Never. So this is a very clear distinction between the institution and what it will try and do and the people it claims to have built the institution around. I mean, I'm saying this guy who's probably nearer the color of my skin, possibly even the color of your skin, like probably in between us or something like that. He was not white. Jesus was not white. He was a revolutionary. He lived he lived under colonial rule. He was anti-establishment. This guy would not even be recognized if he came into a church. And if he was, or if they did see him, they would be like messed up, because he does not look like a sort of white churchgoer of the Western world, because he wasn't a Christian himself. Like, the way he operated was very, very different. So like, it's turned into something completely different. And I think, like you were saying as well, you were saying, like, if you're not in a space where you can question the religious ideologies that are being fed to you, then that is abusive. You should be able to question and feel free to question any ideology that's being placed upon you. Really, what spirituality should do is liberate you. It should make you be more of yourself. It should make you feel at one with who you are, like, not stop you or make you feel guilty for like acting in certain ways or making you feel smaller than you actually are. And that's how it's got messed up, and yeah, it's just crazy. And there's someone just commented and said, I can't remember the exact question, but it was like, do you think the age of religion is over and it's more about individual practices and individual growth? And I just wanted to say, I don't think it's necessarily about individual growth and practices. I think, yes, we are here to follow our own intuition and to learn our own soul's path. So in that way, yes. But I don't think it should take away from the community aspect. I feel like community, which is what religion essentially, one of the positive parts of religion, I think why many people joined religions is to feel not alone anymore, to have a community. I feel like we can have communities where people's individual perspectives are honored. They don't all have to believe the same thing, but you can still be a community. Even you and I, like, we might not have every single view in alignment, and that's normal. We're two different people. It's the diversity of humanity. And then if you grow that into like 20, 30 thousands of people, it's like, we're all going to have different views, but we can still be a community. And I think maybe the days of like everyone having to be like literally believing in the same thing. Otherwise, if someone doesn't and they veer off, they're like kicked out and they're shamed and like all of this bullshit. It's like, no, that's just not it. It's just not it.
Yeah. Well, you know, 100%, Maya. I completely echo everything you said. And one of the problems with religion is that it's so binary. For many religions, it's incredibly binary. And so if we speak at it from the Christian vantage point, which Maya and I both come from, it's like either you're in or you're out.
Yeah.
So either you say this prayer, you give your life to Christ, you're baptized with the evidence of speaking in tongues, depending on what, you know, denomination you come from, and you're in or you're out and you're going to hell. Like, sorry, God doesn't want to send you to hell, but he like kind of has to. So sorry. And it's like, so probably come in before, you know, before judgment day and before, you know, before Jesus comes back, you know, and then everything's gonna be wiped out. And once that's done, you know, sayonara, because God doesn't want anything to do with you after that. That's your last call. And yeah, actually you're gonna be, you know, thrown into the lake of fire and eternally damned, you know. And it's like, whoa, player. Okay, let's pause. Let's just pause for a second here. Okay, first of all, that's very intense. That's the first thing. And secondly, again, that's your opinion based off of what you're reading. Okay? And again, then we even have to go into like, okay, cool. We have to recognize that one, again, this is going to step on some people's stuff. Everything is not in, personally speaking, I'm only speaking for myself. If you're going to use the text, there is a certain level of discernment and translation that you're going to have to give individually. Okay? Not like you're going to have to give that to yourself individually. All right? Because there, you know, again, and people debate the holy text, the Quran, you know, the Bible all day long, because different people have different, you know, thinkings and ideologies of, okay, what does this mean? And what does that mean? First of all, with any type of translation, not even talking about, you know, holy text or spiritual text, with any translation, you run the risk oftentimes of losing the essence and the meaning of what someone is actually trying to say and what they're trying to, the message that they're trying to convey. And so again, people have done a lot of work with trying to do that the best they can, but recognize that, again, this is a perspective. This is a perspective, you know? In 2020, I officially divested from the Christian church. So not just the church I was going to at the time, but the entire Christian institution. And when I did it, I at the time I had a decent relationship with my pastor, and obviously, you know, as a pastor's kid, I have respect for people in leadership, and I have respect for people who are in these religions and traditions. I do. I don't want to make it seem like I don't, you know. And so when I was leaving, I emailed my pastor and said, look, you know, I've decided to leave the church. I didn't have to do this, but I would say, cool, I've decided to leave the church, and this is what I'm thinking. You know, he messaged me and said, cool, can we jump on a conversation? You don't have to, but can we jump on a call to have a conversation about, you know, as to why and everything like that, et cetera. I said, cool, of course we can. So this was kind of like my exit interview. And so we ended up having two of them, because the first one we were kind of catching up a bit, and then I think I kind of dropped it we didn't really speak that much about it, basically. So on the second call, we speak a lot more, and he's got kind of more prepared on the second call. Like, I got questions of, okay, cool, you know, what exactly are you doing? And I'm like, I'm leaving the church. Okay, are you leaving this church or are you leaving the church? And I was like, I'm leaving the church. So both. I'm leaving this church, but I'm also leaving the church. And he's like, okay, cool. Well, what scriptures are you using to base that off of? Well, brother, I'm leaving the church. So actually the scriptures that I would be using to base anything off of, it doesn't actually equate to the same thing that it would mean for you as to someone who's divesting from this space altogether. So that's the first thing. And secondly, I'm basing it off of how I feel in my body, like, and how I feel, like what my spirit and what spirit is saying to me. That's why I'm leaving. So that's another thing. And then he's, you know, we're talking, and he's asking questions and kind of challenging me here and there. Very kind of like light touch, but, you know, still challenging me. And so and then I say to him, look, you know, I start talking about colonialism. I start speaking about my own personal beliefs. I start speaking about how my life now resembles Christ. Because before I left the church officially, I hadn't been going for ages, you know, like, so it's not like I was there every Sunday. But I told him, I said, since leaving the church and not going to church for a long time, my life looks more like Christ now than it ever did while I was in the church. Ever did. And then I start telling him, like, you know, I start like saying, well, this is what Jesus did, and this is how my life looks like that. This is what Jesus did, and this is how my life looks like that. Jesus was with the outcast. This is how my life resembles that. Jesus stood up and was for justice and anti-capitalism. This is how my life looks like this. I start quoting scripture. I start saying this. I was quoting scripture I didn't even know I knew. I was just like, when you're talking, and you're talking good. You're talking good. And it's like I was coming with it. Spirit was speaking through me that day. I promise you, Spirit was speaking through me that day. And I was going da 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 da. And Jesus did this, and this is how my life is like this. Because I was using Jesus as the framework as to why I was leaving, even though I was divesting from Christianity. And you could see in his face, I will never forget this. You will see in this guy's face, like this, like kind of almost fear and dead look at the same time. Because I could see myself completely deconstructing this religious wall he had built around himself. And I was taking it down brick by brick. I was taking it down, and I was literally just dismantling his whole system of being, because for him, his whole identity is in church. And that's the complicated thing, because as a Christian, your identity is supposed to be in Christ. And, you know, but it's like, your identity in Christ is one thing. Your identity in the church and the religion is a whole different thing. And here I was dismantling this identity. Well, for him, he needs that. He needs that religious identity. I don't. And I could just see myself dismantling it. And I was like, man, Daniel, you speaking today, bro. You speaking today. You're speaking for your liberation today. You're preaching today for your freedom. You're preaching for your freedom today, man. And so I'm over here giving, you know, da 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 da. Cool. And then so he's just there, and he's just there like, okay, cool. And the next thing he says, I will never forget. I will never forget the next thing he says. So I'm talking about the life of Jesus to a Christian pastor, and how I'm modeling my life after Jesus based off of what it says in the Bible, right? Because that's what I've been taught. All you need is Jesus. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. You know, just give me Jesus. I'd rather have Jesus than silver and gold. Da, 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 da. Cool. Great. So this guy sits here and says, okay, cool. Okay, Daniel, I hear you. But have you read Paul? Have you read Paul's readings? Have you read Paul's writings? Paul who? Paul who? Paul down the street? Paul who? Paul who? So wait, let me get this straight. I've just told you how my life resembles Jesus. Jesus Christ. My life resembles Jesus Christ. And how this church did not even allow me, or anyone for that matter, to even live the life that Jesus lived because of how the religious institution is even set up. And I tell you all of this, and then you tell me I need to go read about Paul and what he's saying? Are you serious? I was leaving before. I was already leaving, but I knew for sure as hell I was getting up out of there after that. I knew for sure I was up at that place. You telling me my whole life, y'all have been telling me, preaching to me, imploring me that all I need is Jesus. And now that I tell you I see Jesus, I'm like Jesus, you tell me I need to go be like Paul. Get out of here. Get out of here. Get out of here. You see, this is the duplicitous nature of religious rhetoric. This is it. This is it right here. What does Paul have to do with me? It has nothing to do with me. He has nothing to do with me. Paul was a man who heard from Spirit, heard from God, the same way that you, Maya, hear from Spirit, the same way I hear from Spirit, the same way that everyone on this call and who's listening to this hears from Spirit. Why would I listen to Paul? He's a great writer, great writer. Why would I listen to Paul? And if Jesus isn't enough for you as a Christian pastor, then brother, we've got more issues than this church. I'll tell you that right now. Okay? So I don't play this. See, this is the problem here. This is the problem. And it's like, again, I don't tolerate this. Okay? I will not tolerate this at all whatsoever. So I said, look, brother, we're good. We're fine. I see you when I see you. I'm out, because I'm not playing this game with you. I'm not playing this game with you. I'm not playing this game with the next pastor. I'm not playing the game with the guy at the mosque. I'm not playing this with the guy at the synagogue. I'm not playing this with the guy at the Buddhist temple, or the woman at the Buddhist temple, or the non-binary person at the Buddhist temple. I don't care. Whoever you are, I'm not playing these games. Yeah. And in the name of Spirit and our ancestors, you will let our people go. I promise you, you will let our people go from the spiritual and religious abusive nature that you have indoctrinated into our people around the world. You will let us go. Mentally, physically, spiritually, financially, emotionally, you will let us go. I declare and decree that you will let us go. and we will divest. And if Maya and I don't do anything else, we will help the BIPOC community and anyone else divest from the emotional, abusive nature of religious abuse. I promise you that. I promise you that.
Can I just take a moment of like gratitude and appreciation for what you have just given there? Like, I feel like that even people that are joining in, like they felt that. Thank you so much. Like you preached.
Look. Guys, it's abusive. It's abusive. It's abusive. Abuse takes many shapes, many forms. It's abusive.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. My tolerance for abuse is below zero. It's in the negatives. Maya and I have absolutely zero tolerance for abuse of any kind, and especially religious and spiritual abuse. Because all of abuse is harmful and painful and negative. Abuse is terrible. Okay, but you know what? For many abuses, once you leave this earth, you'll be rid of that abuse. The thing about spiritual abuse is even after you're dead and gone, it was still it's saying that you will still be abused.
Yeah.
You will still be abused after your physical body is gone.
Yes.
Now, to mess with someone's soul, to abuse someone's soul, the very essence of who they are, apart from this flesh, to abuse someone at the very essence and core of who they are, which is connected directly to spirit, to abuse that, nah. The energetic repercussions of that, I promise you, will come back to you.
Yeah.
I promise you will come back to you. So everyone out there playing these games, I promise you, you got something coming to you. You got something coming to you. I promise you.
Yeah.
Because it's all like, reap what you sow and spiritual warfare this and spiritual warfare that, if we're using, Christian terminology, until it's time to talk about abuse. Until it's time to talk about abuse, and then everyone's quiet.
Yeah.
No, you will reap what you sow. You will. And that's for England, and that's for America, and that's for every colonial structure that has used religion to abuse us. I'm talking about for every single government that uses any type of abuse, but particularly religious and spiritual abuse, to aggrandize, to abuse, to seek power. I'm telling you, you got something coming to you. You have it all come to you. I don't have to do anything. Maya and I don't have to do anything. We could be on a beach for the next 20 years, and I'm telling you, it's all coming to you. It's all coming to you. I declare and decree it. It's fine. It's fine. I can sit back with my legs crossed. We good. We're good. Because I'm telling you, the energetic repercussions of that, I'm telling you, and we're already seeing it. We're already seeing it. Already seeing it. You think the thing is this world is sick, and that's the thing. And if we look at this now through the lens of white supremacy, and we look at the ways of colonialism, sick. This world is sick. This world is sick. And you think there aren't any energetic repercussions. Suicide is the #1 leading cause of death for men under 45 in this country. You've got abuses happening all over the world, down the street, everywhere. And you think this world ain't sick? You think England ain't sick? America ain't sick? No. You can't abuse people to that degree and think there aren't any repercussions for that. No way. Absolutely no way. So look, like the word says, you will reap what you sow. All right? And the thing here about it, this is another way that, as Christians, we get abused, because we're like, oh, well, that's vengeance, Daniel. Vengeance is the Lord's. That is not vengeance. That is literally the energetic principles of what we're working with right now. Cool. Because again, that's another way as people of color that we have been used to not seek any vengeance, to turn the other cheek and turn the other cheek. So exactly when we were getting colonized, we were being taught to turn the other cheek and turn the other. Look, I don't turn the other cheek. I only got two. All right, because right now I'm telling you, I will not stand for abuse of any kind. I'm not turning another cheek, because you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go sit in my room, go into ritual, and send all of that energy back to you. That's what I'm gonna do. And however spirit wants to manifest it for you in your life, that's exactly what I'm gonna allow and implore spirit to do. And while everything's going on for you and your life is shaking and doing everything, I'm gonna be here in my room getting 8 hours of sleep, sleeping like a baby. I promise you that. Because it's coming. Because it's coming.
What to even say? I mean, you've smashed it, you've killed it. This is like literally everything you've said. And I just want to say, like, some of the points that you were making were so, well, all of them were pertinent, but the things that really struck me is the way that religion holds people's souls in imprisonment. And like, you know, once you've died, you're still being tortured by what they've told you. To play with someone's soul, to use their spiritual being against them, to even use the concept of heaven and hell. If you don't do this, you'll go to eternal damnation. That is cruelty. How can that be ever in the name of love? The reason that the sort of Old Testament and many of these gods in many religions are vengeance, like full of vengeance, or kind of very judgmental, is because it reflects humanity. It reflects the men at the time who were writing these texts. So like they literally projected their own sense of judgment and vengeance on this God, and then just like expected us all to kind of live by that. And it's like this bullshit. Like that's not, like you're like that, but who's to say God's like that? Who are you to tell us as people that God's like that and that we just need to follow your doctrine, that you've just, God knows how many times that's been rewritten. With the New Testament as well, there's so much evidence to show that it's been rewritten. Things have been taken out. The Nag Hammadi, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but there was a whole bunch of texts that were stolen and like hidden because maybe they were being protected, because one of them was written by Mary Magdalene, who was turned into a prostitute in the New Testament, and the Catholic Church has since had to apologize for that because it wasn't true. So there's so much stuff that's gone on that we just need to be really aware of, because if we just don't question what we're being told, our spirits will be imprisoned, and they already have been. I mean, for example, let's just give some personal examples. When I was in this like Christian, born again Christian school, right? Now, it was just me and a Chinese girl and then a bunch of white kids in our class, particularly. And like, I remember having an RE class one day, and this white girl next to me, we were just talking. And then she basically told me that like all of my family were going to hell because they were Hindu. Like just casually in this class. I mean, what the fuck? I never forgot it. I mean, I was like 13 at the time. Imagine like hearing something like that. And like, she wasn't deliberately trying to abuse me, but that's the doctrine that she had ingested from this fucking school. Sorry about my language, but like, it enrages me that, in fact, I'm not sorry about my language. I swear all the time, like, get used to it, everyone. But like, anyway, it's like,
I was going to say,
I don't apologize. It was just like, and then later on when I was older and I was in Bristol and I was like in these groups, these women's groups, I remember this white woman again. She was like, she was a leader in the church basically. And she was like, have you been baptized or christened? And I was like, no. And she was like, well, you need to be, because you'll, I'm laughing, but because it's so ridiculous. She's like, how are you going to get into the kingdom of God? I was like, you're telling me that all of my family and all the Hindus, all the Muslims, like everyone else, we're all damned to hell. Like, you're actually that small-minded that God would create all of these people, right? These beautiful people with diverse backgrounds, diverse religions, diverse everything. And then like only God's chosen ones that are Christian are going to go to heaven. Like, you actually think like that's what this God would do? My goodness, I was like, this is messed up. This is fucked up. Like, and that's why I left. Well, one of the reasons why I left. But it's just, it's a mess. It really is. And like, to think about what it's done during colonialism, like think about India, like homophobia under the name of Christianity during colonialism, like homosexual relationships were banned. Like, people could be killed. I believe people still are killed, and like they still suffer because of this ban that happened, which now has been, I believe it's been lifted, but like the amount of spiritual and emotional and psychological and sexual harm that caused, it didn't even exist in India before then. It's like, this is the damage that it does. It makes you feel like it makes you feel shame about your own background. It makes you feel shame about the color of your skin, often, because race and religion often come hand in hand, especially with Christianity. It made me feel like my family and me, we weren't good enough, and that, you know, we were just being denigrated, like all of our beautiful deities and all of our culture. And that's the point. That's what they wanted us to think. That's what they wanted First Nation people to think. That's what they wanted Black people to think. You know, it's just, it's beyond cruel. It really is.
It's It's foul beyond belief. It's foul beyond belief. To strip people of their lands, to strip people of their spiritualities, to strip people of the things that like are so integral to not just their cultural fabric, but the ways of existing in this world during this lifetime. Like,
Yeah.
it's such a perverse way of like even engaging with people. And the thing is, last week we were talking about The Spirit of Intimacy by Sivan Fusome. And the book I'm reading now is Of Water and the Spirit by Malidoma Some, who was her husband. Both of them have passed to go on to be with the ancestors. But, he was kidnapped by the French colonial church, to become, because basically they wanted, through colonization. And basically he only passed away in December, people, in December. So he was kidnapped when he was young, and he escaped when he was about 15, but was kidnapped by the French colonial Christian church. So then, because they were trying to create this like super group of like African people to then preach to other African people about Christianity. And like, I mean, again, that's just one thing. Like, again, people don't understand the horrors of colonization. This country wants to gloss over it and brush over it. You don't understand the horrors of it. The absolute horrors of this. One thing I want to speak as well, and this goes into colonization and race, and I echo everything Maya said, but particularly when we talk about religion and race, like these two things are pretty much intertwined, and not just from a Christian perspective. And I would say we have to keep Christianity and Islam right there together. Islam was actually, before Christianity, 1,000 years before the transatlantic slave trade ever even existed. 1,000 years before it existed, Islam was used as a way to justify enslaving African people in the north of Africa. The Arab Muslim slave trade predates the transatlantic slave trade by 1,000 years. 1,000 years. And 700 years before Europeans ever interfered with Africa to begin with. So the reason why the transatlantic slave even existed was because of obviously a lot of the slave trades that happened before that, because that's why the transatlantic slave trade was so bad. It was a combination of the worst things of like all these different slaveries put together. But the Arab Muslim slave trade is one of the key reasons why the transatlantic slave trade used and enslaved African people. So Islam has been used to destroy the African diaspora, again, a millennia before Christianity was even used in that type of way. So I just want to bring that into this conversation, because when it comes to race, and like I think we don't talk enough about the Arab Muslim slave trade and the ways that Islam has been used to oppress particularly African people, but also brown people as well, South Asian people as well. If you go in Pakistan right now, the indigenous Pakistanis, they've had to retreat up into like the mountains because of Islamic colonization. They're literally being persecuted. Again, and I just want to bring that more into the conversation, because again, without these understandings, we don't really always see that, this has been going on for millennia, for literally millennia, and so I can't remember what I was about to say after that. Oh yes. The Power to Define. It's another book that I've been reading as well. My Aunt Rachel has got me in on that. But Ben Ami, who I believe he's passed away now too, but he talks about the power to define. And this is one of the things that what he describes as the Euro-Gentile, and that is the European Christian kind of practices and ideologies. But one of the biggest things that has been taken from us as people of color across the board, as people of color through white Christianity, Euro-Gentile Christianity, is the power to define. And that power is so key. The power to define what hell is, the power to define what heaven is, the power to define what being me is, what being black is. Well, first of all, that was something that was put on by white people anyway. As an Indian woman, what that is. The power to define is so key and so powerful, and it has been usurped by the Euro-Gentile, by white colonials, by white people, okay? It has been usurped. So now, many people believe that hell is somewhere underneath us with a guy sitting down in the chair with a pitchfork with flames all around him, like going like this, Yeah. And that heaven is only somewhere you go after you die. People, what makes you think that hell isn't here right now? That we're not living in hell right now?
Exactly.
What makes you think we're not in hell right now? And what makes you think that heaven can't be actualized here on earth? What makes you think that? Heaven is in the mind. And hell, I'm telling you, we're in hell right now. I'm telling you, we are in a hell right now. We don't have to die and go to hell. We are living in a hell right now. That doesn't mean there's not good things happening and But again, it depends what your definition of hell is. But if you allow someone else or a book to define for you what hell is, you will constantly be living out of that definition and not recognize the hell that you are living in right now. Because if everything you do, particularly from a Christian vantage point now, everything you do is about just surviving this lifetime, and I'm just gonna hold on, I'm just gonna tarry, and the Lord's gonna deliver me, and when I'm dead and gone, I'm gonna make it to heaven, and all this will be worth it. All this pain and struggle will be worth it when I get to heaven, and when I get to heaven, the streets of gold. I'm telling you right now, you're in hell right now, and they just don't want you to see it. You're in hell right now. Hundreds of years of slavery. We still live in a colonial world. We would be here for the whole week if we wanted to start talking about the transatlantic slave trade, the Arab Muslim slave trade, colonization of India and South Asia, the colonization of the continent of Africa, the colonization of the world, capitalism, climate change. We'd be here all day. And not saying that there's not good things in this world, but I'm telling you, we're in a hell right now. But you have religious leaders trying to fear you into going to hell after you die, but we're in hell right now. But I'm telling you right now, the joy and the message to be received is that heaven can be actualized here on earth too. Because heaven is in the mind, and that's what it is about. But even in the Christian church, it's about bringing heaven to earth. That's even in the Bible. That's scripture. On earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. That is scripture. That is scripture. That is straight from the mouth of Christ. On earth as it is in heaven. That means anything that's supposed to be actualized in heaven should be actualized here on earth. Anything. Anything that is so we release it in heaven, we release it on earth. Well, guess what? I don't expect there to be racism in heaven. So if there's racism going here on earth, you're missing a trick. You're missing a trick. I don't expect there to be patriarchy in heaven. So on earth as it is in heaven, we got to bring the heaven to earth. Come on now. Come on. I don't expect there to be sexual assault in heaven. So if it's happening on earth, we're missing a trick, because Christ said himself, on earth as it is in heaven. That's not Daniel Edmonds saying it. That's not Maya Kalarian saying it. That is Jesus Christ himself. So I'm telling you right now, if you are a Christian or any type of religious practitioner and you are not fighting you're not fighting racism, you're not fighting patriarchy, you're not fighting colonialism, you're not fighting capitalism, I'm telling you, you are not doing exactly what the spiritual leaders of I would just speak for Christianity. You're not speaking about what Jesus Christ and the spiritual leaders of your faith are telling you and imploring you to do, to release what's going on in heaven here on earth. So I don't understand how you can have any Christian or any white Christian during 2020 or beyond not be fighting for racism, for anti-racism, not be fighting sexism, not be fighting all these injustices and inequalities. And that's what it is. But then guess what? We get to 2020 and silence. And this is just, again, the duplicitous, abusive, ridiculous nature of religion. Is that it's all heaven as earth and as is in heaven until it's time to come and talk about race, until it's time to talk about the ways in which white people have usurped the power to define, have abused us for centuries, aggrandized themselves, and still do. It's all Jesus, this, until it's time to talk about the realities of how you have usurped, again, the power to define and abused us. Again, until it's time to talk about abuse, that's when everyone starts shutting up. Everyone starts shutting up. No one's got anything to say when it's time to abuse, but everything else. Okay, okay. Oh gosh, pray for Ukraine, pray for Russia, and yeah, you should, okay? But it's until it's time to talk about the liberation of Black and brown people. I'm telling you, if you want to hear a church go quiet, talk about that.
Yeah. And I mean, even with this Russia and Ukraine situation, like Black people are still suffering. Like there's still time for racism, people, even in the middle of a war, like even when we should be concentrating on humanity, like there's still time for racism, like, and some of these people call themselves Christian. So, let's be realistic here. Like, I agree with everything you've said. I mean, how to even follow what you said? I mean, completely, you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, everything you've just said.
It's all, and I'm telling you, to everyone listening, whether you're listening to this live or you're listening to this back on Instagram or YouTube, the reason why this is coming through from Maya and I like this is because I'm telling you, this is the work that's on offer to do. You got to free your soul. Free your soul. And I'm telling you, because once you do that, oh, it's a game changer. It's a game changer because colonization, I'm sorry, it's been a little